This is ACC Nation with Will Ogerman and Jim Quist, featuring ACC sports news and interviews. Available on streaming radio, podcast, and YouTube. So we're going to talk some football, and we're going to talk a little bit about basketball, which is coming up in about a week. So we'll start out with football. We had football last Thursday. We're going to have it this Thursday as well. Last Thursday, let's take a look at the scores and the games and get Will to kind of break some things down and get an idea as to why scores ended up the way they did. And the first game was Thursday, October 20th. That was from Virginia, between Virginia and Georgia Tech. 16-9, the final score there. The Cavaliers coming out with a win, and a very much needed win on the road. Tell us what happened with this game, Will.
If you missed it, good. If you watched every play, like I did, consider therapy. But no, this was just not a very good game at all. At least on both teams. The offense, I mean, Brennan Armstrong wasn't bad. I mean, 255 yards passing. He threw a couple of picks, but he got better as the game went on. His legs were kind of the big thing there. He had a touchdown run, ran for 91 yards, led the team. Dontavia Wicks had a real nice touchdown where he kind of looked like his old self of last year. Story of this game, the Virginia defense just would not allow Georgia Tech to do anything. I know Jeff Sims came in this game hobbled. He left before halftime, did not return. They brought in Zach Gibson, who was the ultimate deer in the headlights quarterback. Even though he's had a lengthy career as a quarterback, it just something about that Virginia defense just spooked them because between the two, Virginia's defense sacked the two 8 times. That they were just constantly getting pressure into the backfield all night. Managed just 202 total yards of offense at Georgia Tech, which, again, we're seeing the improvement of the Virginia defense, especially that secondary. They're doing a lot better. And obviously the getting the pressure on the quarterback. That there was a big game for Nick Jackson, who's kind of the leader of the defense. Had a couple sacks himself. He's an Atlanta kid, so he was looking to show out in front of his hometown people, and obviously Chico Bennett a couple of sacks as well, former Georgia Tech player, so the revenge game there. And yeah, I think that was an important win from the Virginia standpoint because they still have an outside shot of bowl eligibility. They need 3 more wins. They can be had, but the offense is going to have to look a lot better in order for that to happen.
Do you think the Virginia offense is clicking better or not?
It's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's full. It by no means is a fully clicking. I mean, it has its moments, definitely. It's the whole, you got a group of guys who have been doing this one thing for so long, and you're asking them to do something totally different, and they're just struggling with it. And yeah, I've said my piece about Des Kitchings on Twitter and here on the podcast that I'm, not the biggest fan of hire, not the biggest fan of what he's done with the offense, but you also have to be fair that, this is what they're trying to do is something totally different. And they are, like I said, I think we've seen over their last 3 games, their offense is improving, especially again, the passing game, but there's the drops are still there. And that's been a big problem for Virginia this season, which is something, that's a huge, issue and something that nobody expected, really.
Guys thinking too much, I think. Let's get into Saturday's game on October 22nd. This was an upset, and nobody can tell me otherwise. Louisville over Pitt 24-10. That surprised me.
Yeah, I watched pretty much this whole game, and it was just weird because you never really felt like Louisville was going to win this game. Like Pitt's defense was doing just enough to keep them in the game. But again, Pitt's offense is sputtering right now. Keaton Slovis threw 2 picks, threw for 158 yards. They ran well on the ground. I'd made a case during the game that, and we can get into the player of the year case down the road, but I said Izzy Abanikanda had a real case because after that performance, he's over 1,000 total yards for the season. He will surpass 1,000 yards in their next game coming up against North Carolina on the 29th. So yeah, it's like so that and yeah, I don't think that will be a problem. But he has had especially with these last few games, he's had a huge season and he's pretty much the only offense Pitt has at this point. You really can't trust Keaton Slovis to do a lot, but the turnaround, I think the story here for Louisville is the turnaround. We were thinking going into the Virginia game that the reports were out there that if they lost, he would get fired, even though some of those people within the program flat out said that was not true. They won that game. They like you said, I would say it was an upset. I know they came in as a 1 point favorite, but I thought that was a bit high, but obviously I was wrong. Lee Cunningham completed less than 50% of his passes, but still threw 2 touchdowns. They ran the ball fairly well. They say the turnovers were just kind of the issue in this game, and Pitt fumbled 4 times, lost 2 of them. Obviously, the 2 picks, 4 turnovers, and really, when you break it down, when we get into these, other games, and that was something I failed to mention with Virginia, they turned the ball over 4 times and still won. Pitt turned the ball over in this game 4 times and lost. We're going to be talking a lot about that as the game is on. But Louisville now 4 wins and still definitely has a shot at a bowl when you look at their final 5 games left. And we can get into that another time, but they still have a shot, definitely.
So in this next game, we've often talked about how Syracuse has had the luck of the schedule, things just kind of going their way. And some teams have seasons like that for sure. But this game, I think, convinced me more than anything that I've ever seen this year out of Syracuse that Syracuse is a little bit more on their real team rather than it being an anomaly. Because when you are playing Clemson, uh, especially when you're in Death Valley, that is an environment that rattles people's cages. Uh, Clemson 27, Syracuse 21.
Yeah, the thing of it coming into this game, Syracuse is, they were without their star safety Garrett Williams. He missed the game with injury, but they've had some issues stopping the run and at times this year, and that ended up being kind of the game plan for Syracuse or for Clemson. They ended up running the ball 60 times in this game for 293 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, averaged 5 yards a carry. Will Shipley 172 yards, Phil Maffa 94. Shows you just really what they want to do because Uyangale struggled in this game, 138 yards, 2 interceptions, had a fumble. The fumble at the 10-yard line that led to a 90-yard defensive touchdown. Kate Klubnik came into the game only 2 of 4, but had a hand in a couple of touchdown drives. They did, that like I said, that was a really good game. They outscored Syracuse 17-0 in the fourth quarter to win that game. And you can look at the way Syracuse managed that. They were Sean Tucker, one of the best running backs in the country, carried the ball 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. When you have one of the best running backs in the country, you need to carry it more than 5 times. And yeah, we know why that.
Who do we point
the guy who refuses to take the blame, the guy who used to coordinate Virginia's offense, the guy who, yes, while he's a great play designer, is game management is not his forte. But this was credit to Syracuse because they did really they kind of came out through that first punch, and it was basically by round 9 of a 12-round fight, Clemson just took over, I guess you could say, and dominated the match. Yep.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And that's that's the difference between a team that has the next man up theory in full play, has tons of depth and talent, and can just continually throw people at you and will wear you down. And that's exactly what happened. And you're right. not using Sean Tucker any more than that is criminal, and certainly calls into question the ability of somebody who is considered an offensive coordinator. I would say that that's more like offensive rather than offensive.
Offensive, yes, not
Uh,
offensive.
yeah,
Offensive. Oh.
yes, the count.
Mhm.
Yeah, that game. Clemson definitely in that second half pulled out all the stops, and it looked like the Clemson of of the past. So
Mhm.
looked a lot better. Um, Doing the quarterback thing, there's been it's settled down a lot, but there's been a lot of conversation about why they did that. What does this mean? Blah 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 blah. I I looked at it as being the same thing. Somebody said this immediately during the game. I wish I could attribute this because I can't remember who said it, but he said, "Look, it's a lot like when you got you're managing a baseball team, and your ace starter is just not really having a good day.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to take him out of the game for a little bit, settle him down. But
Yeah.
obviously, you can't put him back in. But
Yeah.
in this particular instance, I think settling DJ down was a good thing. Just give
Mhm.
him some perspective. Talk to him.
Yeah.
Get his head back in the game.
And
So,
Dabo even said, and as this week that DJ's the starter again, and we know he's not going to pull DJ unless it absolutely necessitates it.
yeah, he is the starter. There's no
Yep.
question about it. Gave the other kid a great experience, and he was that spark they needed to turn things around. That's a good thing. But let's not go overboard with a quarterback controversy at Clemson, because there is not a controversy at Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
Duke, boy, absolutely rolled to a huge win over the Canes, and people already talking. Let's fire Cristobal. What are you people insane? You just got rid of one coach and you did everything in the world to get Mario Cristobal to come. I'm going to start talking like the Count here since you started that, to come to Miami and to take over the program. He has to build the program. It's not going to come overnight. I don't know who has the idea in their head, realistically, that any college football team can be turned immediately around in short order like that. It just doesn't happen. For you folks who are listening to us on the podcast and who are listening to us on ACC Nation Radio, I would invite you to also follow us on YouTube, because if you do, you have an opportunity to check out one of our furry friends, Will's buddy, Martin, who has a really interesting sweater on. So, what is that again? Oh, it's skull and crossbones.
Skull and
Of
crossbones.
course.
One of the first sweaters we ever bought him.
Perfect. Perfect. You need to check that out.
Oh, hold on, guys. I got less to say here.
Yeah. Poor dog looks like he's afeared. Um, all right. So Duke 45, Miami 21. I just don't know what's really going on there. And I read some stuff about, in fact, retweeted this about Tyler Van Dyke being upset and his head's not in the game, all kinds of nonsense. It's like, why is it that we hear the same thing year after year, no matter what coach is at the helm in Miami? What is the problem?
Yeah. Um, I would say that this is the biggest shock of in terms of outcomes of all the games this week. Yeah, I thought Duke could cover the spread. I think, and I even said this last week. Duke was like a 9 point. It was like a 9 point underdog, and I just felt like that was a right for at least a cover. I wasn't willing to go all the way there to say upset. but holy crap. I mean, the funny
One
thing
way of
is,
putting it,
is the funny thing is the yard you got 66 points in a game where the Duke had 336 total yards. Miami had 327. But we talked about Tyler Van Dyke got knocked out of this game with an injury. Jake Garcia came in, did all right. He did better early, but as the game it got worse as the game went on. They only had 48 yards rushing. The Hurricanes have really had a hard time running the football this year, and I thought that was going to be a lot more of a thing they'd be able to utilize this year. But we haven't even touched the biggest story: the amount of turnovers. A one, a two, a skip a few, a 7, 8 turnovers. Oh.
yeah, the turnover chain has come back to bite them. It's instant karma.
I thought the funniest thing I saw from that game was the Duke guy who scored the touchdown and then put up the U sign and broke it over his knee.
Yeah,
I was like, damn, you just got
that,
yeah.
that got a lot of exposure
I
on
mean, you're
social
kicking
media.
Miami's ass in their stadium. You have every right to do it. I am
Yeah.
not gonna not gonna
Yeah,
rip on him for that.
no, not at all. I mean, it was just
And
one of those moments that
yeah,
lives on.
yeah. And while we're on the subject, we should invite people to check out ACC Nation. Yeah, because I'm having a hard time talking. Sorry, buddy. ACCNation.net, where I have made my return to writing and made my case for Mike Elko as ACC Coach of the Year. And I think I made a pretty compelling argument for that.
Yeah, good read.
That's all,
ACCNation.net.
folks.
It's all right. It's usually me. So, I'll take anyone else taking the reins of that one and running with it. Um, so our final game was Wake Forest over Boston College, and the final score here 43-15. Let me just say that for those of you who are wondering what happened to Boston College, like Will and I, because at the beginning, around May, you and I talked about the potential of this team. Had potential. There were some question marks, but there was a lot of potential. You got a good quarterback, got a good wide receiver, there's some potential on defense, and there was something we weren't seeing, but we didn't know what it was just because of the way stuff works. In our 5 minutes with segment with AJ Black, he explains exactly what has been going on at Boston College and what may be the ultimate outcome of that. That is available at ACCNation.net. You can click on it's a podcast form. It's also on ACC Nation Radio. Click on either one of those and have that story. I will tell people here before we get into this that there's going to be some specific content that will be showing up on ACC Nation Radio, exclusive to that. And then some that will be on ACC Nation podcast, exclusive to that. And ultimately some exclusive content, which will be here on YouTube as well. So between the three, you really should be subscribing to all three. Doesn't cost you anything. It's a freebie. And check it out because there's a lot of content coming up, especially with the end of the season with football. And we're going to be talking about basketball here in just a moment. Getting back to Wake Forest, rolling to a 43-15 win over Boston College.
Yeah, it was by the way, a great interview with AJ. He's probably the foremost person on Boston College that I know of. He's really, really good at his job and is very much, I believe he's an alum, but he definitely is going to tell you exactly what's going on. Yeah. He doesn't put the blinders on for sure. But yeah, this again, he mentioned it during the interview, just their lack of ability to run the football, and they averaged 2.4 yards per carry in this game, which I think I don't have it in front of me. I think that might be a close to an improvement for their yards per carry for the season. I could be. It was pretty close.
Yeah.
But yeah, Phil Jurkovec wasn't bad in this game. He threw a touchdown pass, but the problem was Sam Hartman's really, really, really good. 313 yards and 5 touchdowns. just, we're like, he's another person that probably should be an ACC Player of the Year mix, even though he ended up missing the game early in the season. But no mind, because he's putting up Sam Hartman stats and just looking really, really good. And looking at how some of his players, the Jamal Banks, who he's probably number 4 or 5 you would expect in terms of pass catchers, led the team with 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a real nice touchdown along the sideline that game. But yeah, Boston College is now 2-5. Wake is bowl eligible once again. Definitely have a path to a 10-win season when you look at their final 5 games. They could actually, when you look at it, there's a possibility there's a chance they can win all of them and finish the season 11-1 with that overtime loss to Clemson on their schedule,
which would make it for an excellent season.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly. They'd probably, if they did that, we could be talking a New Year's Six bowl for them potentially.
Yep, I would think so. And it would not surprise me in the least, Will. Would it you, if that happened?
Not at all.
I mean,
they 100% deserve it.
This is a very good team, and I have, I guess, ragged is the best way to put it. Ragged on the fact that media outside of Winston-Salem and North Carolina in general tend not to talk a lot about Wake Forest. And when it comes to this team, what Dave Clawson has done and what this team does on a weekly basis, people are missing the story. There should be more coverage of Wake Forest than there is. I don't know who is not doing their job, but pick up the ball and do better. It's criminal that certain teams don't get the exposure just because they're not in a bigger market. I mean,
yeah, and what Clawson's done with that program, sent over the last like 5-6 years or whatever. It's just really amazing when you saw where they were the first couple of years under him and to see where they are now. I mean, wow, this is one of the one of the consistently best programs in the country. Just in terms, when you look at, they don't recruit like necessarily the best, but it's the development. That's where Clawson and staff deserve a ton of praise.
Yeah, indeed. That's a look at the past week of football in the ACC. Now let's take a look at what happened over in. I'm sorry, did I miss the Notre Dame? There wasn't the Notre Dame game. Okay.
Yeah, they played
okay.
UNLV, remember?
Oh, so there really wasn't a game. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they came out 23-7 at the end of the first quarter and just kind of cruised, winning 44-21. Yeah, ran the ball well. Logan Diggs, 130 yards rushing. Drew Pine threw for 205. Just doing what you expect from Notre Dame. Michael Mayer, 100 yards receiving. Notre Dame's 4-3 on the year. We told you they win. I was hesitant to cover when I looked at the point spreads, but yeah, they looked really good in this game. And if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're happy they got out of there with a win, and that's that.
Happy they got out with a win. Boy, when was the last time you heard that applied to Notre Dame?
Probably with the year they went 4-8.
Wow. Okay. Let's look at what's coming up. Yeah. So this is where we start getting into the mix of the ACC +1. And this is, again, I have to explain this on a regular basis to people. People complain, why do you cover Notre Dame football? Why do you talk about Notre Dame football? They're not in the ACC, blah, 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 and all that. All right. Number one, it's our choice. So, all right. Two, but number one is the most important part, is that they have a contract with the ACC to play a specific number of games against ACC teams, which makes up a good chunk of their schedule. Though they may not be a member of the conference in football, there is a big influence there on, who they're playing, and how they're ranked, and we take a look at that because we think it's relevant. The whole reason we put them in the power poll is because it's a good way to gauge, when they're getting ready to play somebody. It's a good way to gauge where we think that team is performing as opposed to your team or other teams are performing, so that you can sort of go, oh, okay, it looks like we may have a shot or we don't have a shot. In this particular instance, and you can take a look at the latest power poll. It's accnation.net. The team that they're going to be playing this week actually is ranked much higher. And you can also find out what the odds are by checking out some of the other articles. But let's get into the first game, which is another Thursday night game. Virginia Tech at NC State. Not much hope, at least from the odds makers here, that the Hokies are going to do anything in Raleigh.
Do you see the over under, what the current over under on this game is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with it, the over under on this game is 39 right now. I just looked it up on Vegas Insider. A couple of sports books have it at 39. Let's see, yeah, BetMGM and Caesars have it currently at 39. That tells you just exactly how low of a scoring game they have this. And NC State is currently like a 13.5 point favorite, which I feel like is kind of high when you figure that the offense hasn't been the greatest in the last game and a half with their current quarterback. I think a lot of this is just relying on, they're thinking the NC State defense is going to be really, really good in this game, force turnovers and probably get a defensive touchdown to get to that point.
Defense and home field advantage.
Yeah.
That's what's driving that.
So basically this is my way of saying, if you're not a fan of these two schools, go find something else to watch. Don't watch, and I would advise you not to watch this with small children. This game might be rated R.
Yeah. Well, in my household, it probably would be.
R.
Yeah, R. Anyway, Virginia Tech at NC State, don't see anything really.
Yeah, exactly.
Other than what Will just kind of laid out there for you. If you can't read between the lines, probably not going to be a great game. NC State, probably defense, home field advantage, like you said. Okay. So let's get into some action that might be exciting. On Saturday, Georgia Tech at Florida State. That could be entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. You gotta see how things stack up here. When you look at how does Georgia Tech respond from that win, from that loss. Florida State coming off the bye. The Noles are a 24-point favorite, and that just seems really, really high to me.
Yeah.
Not obviously I say this every time, gambling is not legal in Minnesota yet, but I'd love for it to be. This actually started at 20 and it just keeps going. So I'm just wondering if there's movement on this because they don't think Jeff Sims is going to play. I did see some stuff from Kelly Quinlan, I believe it was today, that he had been practicing. So I think it's going to come down to a game time decision ultimately for Sims on Saturday. So I'm kind of curious about that line. And obviously, even if he does play, I don't think he'll be 100%. So that's something to keep an eye on. Definitely think the Noles win this game, though.
Yep. Next, Boston College at UConn. This is sort of like a Notre Dame and UNLV game. And as AJ told me, he said, if Boston College loses that game,
oh boy,
the proverbial will hit the fan. And so, could get ugly there on Chestnut Hill. If that happens, I don't see that happening, but
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I think the point spread right now has UConn as a 7.5-point favorite, and like UConn is better. Let's be real about that. They're a little bit better. They've actually won multiple games, which I couldn't tell you the last time that's happened. But Boston College should win this game. It all depends on whether or not they can get anything resembling a run game going here. If they can, I think they cover that point spread fairly easily.
Yeah, agreed. Miami at Virginia. This, I think, and you and I will probably see eye to eye on this. We have seen games together at Scott Stadium where teams have come in there thinking that they're going to, or they should have been the favorite, and they end up losing to Virginia. And to me, this is the perfect game for Virginia to grab a win from Miami.
Yeah, and I hesitate. I really don't know like how to look at that. Most point totals right now, I have it right around a 2, maybe of anywhere as low as a 1.5 to upper to 2.5 for in favor of Miami. And that feels low to me, but maybe it's just because I just know that Miami roster has so much more talent on it than Virginia's does. But I also think, okay, we don't know if Tyler Van Dyke's going to play. We're recording this Wednesday night. That it's trending towards not so because Jake Garcia's got taken a lot of the snaps and practices so far this week. So it's trending towards him, and they're thinking, oh, he threw 3 picks, but he's also going to have a week of practice as a starter. So maybe that means maybe that'll help. But at the same time, Virginia's strength has been the second, has been better, on the pass side because their secondary's been better. They've been getting to the quarterback. Obviously, we talked about the 8 sacks against Georgia Tech last week. I lean Miami in this game, but on a scale of 1 to 10 on the confidence meter, is probably about a 2 to 3. I don't have a lot of confidence in that pick.
This is that 2 point favorite that I saw is to me that was a red flag. And again, because of Scott Stadium, there's just something about that place that ruins teams that come in there thinking they're going to win. I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, but it feels like Virginia is going to pull off a win over Miami in this game. And I think you're right about the talent and experience that Miami is superior to the Cavs in that regard.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this all plays out in the long term.
Yeah, and maybe just getting that one win really like boosts this Virginia team, getting that conference win. And by the way, while we're on the subject, if I was to make a bet on this game, I would take the under on 48.5. That feels like that point spread's too high for my taste. I don't think either team is going to get. Well, maybe Miami could get to like a 28 points, but I just don't know if Virginia will, to be honest with you. So yeah, but yeah, like if Virginia were to win this game, like you mentioned, they'd have 4 wins, and with the way the rest of their schedule plays out, obviously they're not beating North Carolina. Pitt at home looks a lot more winnable now than it did a few weeks ago. Coastal Carolina, will see that. I would probably lean, to be honest with you, I might lean Coastal. And then at Tech, this is, we know the 2 decades of futility for Virginia in this rivalry, but God, Virginia Tech is bad this year.
Next up is Notre Dame at Syracuse. And at the beginning of the season, who would have ever thought, as the saying goes, this would be on your bingo card? Because Notre Dame at the beginning of the season would have been the team that would have come in and just destroyed Syracuse. It may actually flip-flop in this game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is just it's all on Notre Dame's offense. We've seen them struggle for pretty much all season long to really get going on offense. And I say Syracuse is a 2.5 point favorite at home. I can totally see that. If I was putting money on it, I'd probably lean towards that. Especially since this game's at home, I could see the crowd being a factor in this game. But yeah, I think the most important thing that the Syracuse needs to do this week is run the damn football.
Over and over and over.
And not 20 plus times with Garrett Schrader. Do it 20
Yeah,
plus times with Sean Tucker, because that's pretty much going to be a lock for 100
right,
yards.
right. Spread it out a little bit more, guys.
Spread the love, baby. Spread the love.
That's right. Next up, Wake Forest at Louisville, and the odds makers are saying this may be closer than what we would have imagined.
Yeah, 3.5 seems a little low for me. And this is a Wake Forest favorite. I've actually got it I've got it at 4 on a sports book here. But yeah, I would still at the game. It started at 6.5 and it's come back down to 4. And I'm just kind of wondering what that. I think Wake wins by 2 scores in this game, and it's just because I'm just really really high on Wake. And the only concern I have is what is Malik Cunningham? I know he was banged up a little bit during that game. It almost looked like a Tua Tagovailoa situation where he was banged up, then got hurt, then left the game, and ended up coming back. But he still played well in the game. But I just don't know how healthy he'll be in this game. But I like Wake in this game.
Pitt and UNC. I think this has the potential of being a really good game, and this is one that I'm looking forward to watching. I just think that both teams are going to pull out all the stops, and I think it's going to be a barn burner.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is just because the lack of defense from UNC. I could see Izzy Abanikanda getting the amount of carries he did against Virginia Tech a few weeks back, where he was carrying the ball like 30 plus times, because this is not exactly a good defense in North Carolina. They obviously can score with better than anybody else in this conference, but they can't stop anybody either. This is where I think that point spread is pretty good right there. There definitely seems to be some shootout potential in this game. When you look at it, I just wonder if Keaton Slovis can be consistent enough as a passer to keep them in this game. Yeah, the over under on this game, I've got it at about 64.5, and that seems about right. I think I would still take the Tar Heels in this game. I don't know if I would take the point spread though, but I think if I'm just picking straight up winner, it would definitely be UNC.
Yeah, I would go in that direction as well. Quick basketball check here. ACC men's basketball and women's basketball begins on Monday, November 7th. So we're getting very close. Next week, we're going to be having guests on, talk a little bit more about basketball. And in the preseason coaches poll on the men's side, it's UNC at number 1. You already know that. At Duke at number 8 and Virginia at 18. The receiving votes category, it's Miami at 28, 33 Syracuse, 34 Florida State, 35 Virginia Tech. Now, today we came out with the women's preseason coaches poll. Louisville is ranked at number 5. NC State at 8, Notre Dame at 10, North Carolina at 12, Virginia Tech at 13, and in the receiving votes category, it's Miami at 49. So
it seems like the women's side is going to be really exciting this year come conference play.
Yes.
Yeah, we're seeing, I would say you mentioned all the all the teams in the poll, and Miami just on the outside. We're going to see, a really really interesting Virginia team this year with the new coach, all the new talent. I think they're I don't think they're going to make the tournament this year, but they're actually going to field a basketball team, and mostly just because they have a confident coach on the sidelines. Coach Mox has really renewed the energy in that program, and I'm really excited for them to do. But yeah, you say it's once again it's Louisville and NC State with everyone else. Virginia Tech has had a really good women's basketball program the past few years. They really, really, turned their program around. So definitely, this is definitely a good year to get into women's basketball if you haven't.
Coach Kenny there coming out of Waynesboro. Shout out to my old stomping grounds in that area.
Yeah.
He has done a fabulous job with the Hokies.
Yeah.
I think, as you said, a lot of women's basketball in the ACC has picked up steam so much. I absolutely love it. There's some great teams, great games. If you look at this 5, 8, 10, 12, and 13, I mean,
Yeah,
that,
five top 15 teams. Yeah, you're gonna,
yeah.
and yeah, you're gonna get a real good game every night.
And of course, the number one team in the country is led by a former Virginia player, Don Staley. So
Yep.
I won't even mention who the team is. You already know who that is.
South Kakalake,
And I'll just tell you that
the
UConn
not Yukon team.
ain't there. So, and that part always makes me very happy. So that's a look at stuff. And a reminder for you that rankings, we're going to have a lot of the rankings for all the fall sports and some of the upcoming winter sports are going to be on the podcast and on ACC Nation Radio. As a matter of fact, I think that's some of the content that will just be on radio. So be looking for that. Just look for ACC Nation radio. Just type it in. We've made a switch over, so I just want you folks to know that if you're looking for it and you click on a platform where it's not there, you can tell sometimes it's the older logo. It's not there. We switched over to a different provider, and we're trying to get things switched over as quickly as possible. It's sometimes a lot slower than you would imagine, especially at this time of year. But we are trying. There's a lot of exclusive content. We are talking about the rankings for things like soccer, field hockey, and a lot more. All that going to be on ACC Nation Radio exclusively. We'll be talking about that and what's going on a daily basis when we get into the championships, because the championships are coming up very soon, the beginning of November in some cases, where we're going to talk about what's going on a daily basis. And that information will be on ACC Nation Radio. If you can't find a platform, it's really simple. Just go to accnation.net. That's our website, accnation.net, and just come down the page, maybe a quarter of the way, and you'll see a logo there for ACC Nation Radio. Click on that. Boom, you got it. All right. You got the link. You can put that on your phone. You can do anything that you want with it. Take it anywhere, anytime. We're there 24/7. So, and a lot more content coming in the future too. So I hope that you'll join us at ACC Nation Radio. Thank you for joining us on YouTube and ACC Nation podcast as well. Until next time, cheers.
Score.